What we've got now is you got multiple computers that all of a sudden they pick up the change and they start piling on each other. And then you see the market dump and you're sitting here going, hey, supply and demand hasn't changed.
These computers can influence the price of our live animals or our crop commodities.
So from one tweet, it wiped out $87,000 from my operation.
We're not going to feed America by farmers markets around the country. We have got to have real solutions to put the beef that's in the grocery store in front of the American people, but also keep the ranchers in business.
At the end of the day, there's 4 buyers. I get 4 to 5 calls a week of guys getting their notes called due from banks all over the country. All farmers and ranchers can hedge. But the problem is you've been beat up and your margins are so freaking thin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Real Rule. We are in Eastland, Texas on the Texas tour. You've heard me mention Empire Ag. We are super excited that now we are getting to visit with Empire Ag at the Conley Hotel. So please help me welcome Jonathan Haralson. Thanks so much for being on.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
First, I want to ask you about Empire Ag. Tell us what you guys do.
For us in Empire Ag, my vision or my mission whenever I started was to help the American producer. There were so many guys that were struggling, whether it was the bank putting pressure on them or they were leaving money on the table because they couldn't navigate the markets. I wanted to create a space where I could make them better businessmen and women, where the risk we could offset. Because as farmers and ranchers, we are always expected to take on 100% of the risk. So we bear it all, hoping for a return. And those things can vary. I mean, a simple tweet can drive the market down and you lose 20% of your market in 3 days. Those kind of things happen that are out of our control. Are there tools that we can use? Absolutely. And so we wanted to build a space where we could focus on the body, mind, and spirit of every farmer. That's the piece that I think has been missing for the last 20 years. Are there operations that are highly successful? Absolutely. But the story since 1960 is get bigger, get bigger, get bigger. Mm-hmm. That comes with its own challenges. We've sacrificed ourselves as individuals, which in turn has helped, on the mental side. That's why we see the crisis with suicide rates as high as they are. You see depression. You just see a lack of confidence in every decision that they make. And we felt like we needed a spot at that table. Since inception, we've evolved. Now, like we have an accounting arm, so Empire Financial Services. We need to get a handle on where they are financially and have a path forward. But we got to work on you as an individual. We've got to be able to market better. We've got to have more of a business strategy approach to farming and ranching. And then I caught myself recently, I was putting together loan packets. And I mean, we've done over $200 million worth of loans that we've worked on and helped get financed in all over the country. We're in 24 states. And in that, I've also figured out that there's a struggle. Not all banks are created equal. Not all bankers understand agriculture. And I think our industry as a whole has matured past what traditional banking can handle.
Tell the American people, why is it that we have such a tough time in ag? And everyone talks about free markets in all of our sectors of our economy. Is it a free market in ag? How does it work?
It's a hybrid system. So we always talk about supply demand being a big thing. While that is, I would say, traditionally where we're at. The other aspect of raw commodities is that our government utilizes us, agricultural commodities, as a trade negotiating tool. So we're trying to help Ford Motor Company or any other manufacturing company across the country. We may sell wheat to them, or we may buy their wheat. Mm-hmm. And this has happened more times than not, even with Ukraine. We bought wheat that was subpar. We dump it on the U.S. market, which then subsequently dives our wheat price, which was at that time above $10 a bushel. Look at us now. We're at $5. I can tell you, if you're west of I-35 in the United States right now and you look at the price of wheat, it doesn't make sense to combine it. It doesn't. It's been like this from the inception of our country and in countries across the world. It's not just a U.S. issue. But agriculture, the staple, the ability to feed America or to feed your country, Africa, Europe, whatever, agriculture has been a major tool that we've used in trade.
Explain to people how we are keeping a cheap food source at the expense of our farmers and ranchers.
If you look at the artificial manipulation of the markets that we're kind of seeing, and that could be from, the supply and demand. Yes, that is a fundamental piece of this market. So we have big supplies, then obviously demand's going to diminish and price should fall. But we have things that happen where supply artificially gets dumped onto our market. Nobody wants it. Domestically, we cannot sell wheat, soybeans, corn, whatever the case may be. And so our farmers end up suffering.
Yeah.
Well, we've been in a system where, the Farm Service Agency, you've probably heard the Farm Bill, that's a funding mechanism that has been set aside to try to stabilize the farm economy. The problem is that inputs and equipment have risen faster than what we've seen. My dad was selling wheat for exactly what we're getting this year. His combine cost $50,000, mine cost $500,000. And so the net revenue is just totally diminished. So even though a guy may farm 10,000 acres, if he can come up with $100,000 net after all payments are done and pays his employees and all that good stuff, like that's how minuscule the actual net dollar is on farms across the country. And I don't care, it's from coast to coast. Like it is not something that is just isolated to one geographic region. It's everywhere.
Tell us what the Chicago Board of Trade is and how it affects the price that farmers and ranchers get for their products.
You have the exchange, which is the CME. And so you got people on one side that are either Mrs. Baird's. Let's just use this for instance. Mrs. Baird's needs to buy wheat, but you also have a farmer who needs to sell wheat. And so by taking that wheat, there's an intermediary, which is the exchange. The buyer and the seller never meet, but there's contracts that are traded every day. And that's where we get our price discovery. Are there speculators that are in the market? Yes. And I know a lot of folks maybe have a negative connotation to speculators. And I think those speculators create liquidity. So we need more people in that are trying to buy and sell to create movement in the market. And the movement in the market allows us that, a farmer, if the price is high, we know we can lock in a price here. Now, that comes at a cost. You should have knowledge on how to navigate that market. And a lot of times, most producers are a little bit nervous because it's like a foreign language.
Talk to us about the algorithmic trades that go on in the CBOT.
So within the trading world right now, there's been a big movement. There are algorithm trades. So let's just say cattle are, trending up. Well, all of a sudden, nothing's changed, and you notice that cattle fell $7. Why did it do that? Well, it could have been that a computer picked up something, some movement, and that computer's programmed to isolate those changes in the market and then take the opposite position, which should be a profitable trade. Well, what we've got now is you got multiple computers that all of a sudden they pick up the change and they start piling on each other. And then you see the market dump and you're sitting here going, hey, supply and demand hasn't changed. It hadn't changed 2 weeks ago. It hasn't changed yesterday. It's not changing tomorrow because this agriculture ship, we cannot turn around on a dime. That's what people don't understand is I can hold a heifer back today and she still got to get to breeding age. Once we breed her, it's 9 months. Then from 9 months, we got 6 months, 8 months. Then they further down the process. I mean, we're not going to see an impact in supply in a good 2 years.
I think any type of algorithm trading is too much. None of it should be allowed, in my opinion, but who am I? But these computers can influence the price of our live animals or our crop commodities based on an algorithm, ones and zeros that they noticed.
Yes, you've got these speculators that are tied to usually large investment funds. They're moving hundreds of contracts at a time, and that's where you get the big market movement. Is that a bad thing? I think there needs to be some regulation in it. I think with AI coming on board, this sparks a whole nother debate that ties into that. There are AI programs that are now monitoring the algos. So if they're trading and they pile in, then we get even more shorts that are falling on. And it's a lot of volatility. Now, I was talking with our guys, with our network in Empire Ag, and let's just take cattle. We were at right at 380. And I told them, I was like, if you look at it, percentage change in the market, we're at a high enough level now that we could see a $70 correction.
I want to just break that down. When you say we're at 380, for people who have no clue, what do you mean?
So $380 per 100 pounds, which is based on a 750-pound steer delivered to Amarillo, Texas. And price is going to vary. We use basis. So basis is transportation, it's the cost to get them there, it's the difference in the light, kind, and quality. Those things derive how we get paid on what we have product-wise. So I went back and I looked like 30 years of trend data and where we've been and big market moves. And so even though, like, say we were at $1.30 10, 12, 15 years ago, when the market fell, maybe we fell to 90 cents. So I would take the percentage move in that, and I've then calculated that and went back to where we've made our moves and kind of track all the trading and look at the charts. That's how I came up with $70 is a realistic spot that we could probably fall. I think we hit right at 80 when we came down. So we wiped out $80 a hundredweight, which again, that's $560 per calf.
In gross, not off the net.
Yeah. So from one tweet, it wiped out $87,000 from my operation, 87 grand, which that pays for my employee, that pays for vehicles, fuel, feed.
It's a market that's so volatile that one tweet, one sentence could take almost 100 grand out of your operation, and you did nothing.
Absolutely. Now, we have to be proactive. And this is why Empire Ag has really came in, is you can't be everything. If you're the laborer and you don't have someone that's looking out for every aspect of your operation, and you're not going to make it. The stakes are so high right now, and that's why I think we're seeing a lot of our 70 to 80-year-olds that they've got a good operation, but the volatility is so high. And if they pick to sell on the wrong day because they make an emotional decision, the break even from profitability to actually making money, if they just pick the one wrong day of the year to sell those cattle. And it's not like we can just say, well, we're not going to sell them. You've organized laborers, you've organized trucking, you've got everybody down the pipeline ready for your cattle that day.
The Texas Tour series of the Real Rural podcast is sponsored by Empire Ag, the partner that covers the whole operation. They combine consulting, financial services, and branding to help producers tighten up their business and tell their story well. Visit youragempire.com to see how they can support your operation.
Talk to people about how manipulation can come into play on the Chicago Board of Trade. I don't think people understand that sometimes, even in agriculture, how manipulated it can be.
You take some of the algorithms, you take some of the non-traditionals. And what I mean is, like, it's not an end user, It's not Tyson, it's not Mrs. Baird's, it's not anybody else that takes a raw commodity and turns it into a consumer good. And it's not the producer. So it's going to be that speculator class that's going to come into the market. They're going to pile in. And they're going to pile in a big way and use a lot of money. And they're going to push the market down. You can always be a buyer or a seller in the CME for any commodity that's out there. But if you get a sniff that something's going to happen and could be weak towards the market, they front run it. And they expect that the market's going to go down. So they're getting in right now at the peak. And then tomorrow, the news hits the wire, and all of a sudden, they're in a winning trade immediately. So as that compounds and continues to do that, they're just piling in more money because every day they're a winner. And the one thing about the CME, if you make the right bet, you're a winner. And if you're a loser, on the flip side, they want you to pony up the money. And I mean, that's just the way the intermediary works, whereas with the exchange.
Can the Packers or any big other entities manipulate the CBOT?
Absolutely, because they can do it with big numbers. Here's the thing, is like, if you want to lose, you can lose a little money up front, but if you got the cattle to back it up, which they do, they've got a captive supply, and you're sitting here able to take positions on the board one way or the other, knowing what you're going to do on the cash side, absolutely you can manipulate that. So what people don't understand, I run nearly 400 head of cattle. It's impossible for me to take my cow-calf operation, take the calf, I've got to pay the factory, you know? So the cow-calf, she's done her work all year, I've got a calf, I need money for that. So I take that calf to the sell barn or I sell it direct to a feed yard. I've got customers that I work with to try to move that supply down the chain. It would take a lot more capital for me to, one, pay the factory, then carry them through the stocker phase. Then I got to pay the stocker phase and then go to the feeder phase, and we feed those cattle out. At the end of the day, there's 4 buyers. Now, everybody wants to say, hey, it's great, I can package that beef up and I can sell it. I will tell you, I tried that on a larger scale. I sold 7 out of 187 calves. And so the American consumer, I mean, they want these high-quality products.
Sure.
They don't want to pay for it.
Well, the direct-to-consumer, and that's what you're referring to, is this direct-to-consumer movement, which I think is great. I'm all for it. Every cow-calf producer's for it. We can't expect every rancher to do that. We're not going to feed America by farmers markets around the country. We have got to have real solutions to put the beef that's in the grocery store in front of the American people, but also keep the ranchers in business. On this topic of the packers, you were just getting started out with cattle, and you came up against hundreds of thousands of ranchers' experience with the big 4 packers, the monopolistic practices they implore. Tell us a little bit about what happened to you.
I'd bought some Red Angus cattle, a good set of reds. I mean, these were uniform. They were great. We put them on feed. I had my cow-calf operation running row crop, had a trucking company. I mean, anything I can to make a buck and try to build our empire. I'm in my 20s. Buy this set of cattle. I'm really excited about them. Break-evens are good. We're sitting in a great spot. I'll work on some hedging to try to protect us on price. We get the Trump tariffs come in, and this is the first round. And so at that point, and I'm feeding all natural cattle, which there was a premium on those cattle. We're in a good spot, and we get around to those cattle getting finished. And I can't get a spot to kill them. Can't find anywhere. Like, nobody will buy the cattle. China exited the market immediately. Like, there was nowhere to go with these naturals. So if you're going to feed natural cattle, like you're not going to get the performance that maybe a conventional calf is. You're going to have a little bit more cost in those cattle to get there. So I had to go the conventional route. So I started making some calls to JBS, to Tyson, and good old Tyson. They decided they'd buy them. And I said, look, like, these are quality animals. We work a deal. And we had the base price plus a premium in the box. And we had a scorecard for all the deducts. You know, if carcass was too large, you were going to lose this much money. You know, and basically we had this thing stared out to where if they were quality, if they're what I think they were and what I told them they were, I was going to get a good price. So in true broke farmer fashion, I load those things up because I can't afford to have anybody haul them for me. I knew we were going to be close to breaking even on those cattle. I knew it. So I haul them up to the panhandle, I pull in, and all of a sudden I see some JBS trucks rolling in. And they're unloading, and I unload these beautiful, they were 1,475 pounds, beautiful Red Angus, uniform, clean, nice cattle. And in the chute next to me, they're unloading some junk from...
Who knows where?
I don't know. Humps, horns, leather, nasty, not finished, and they're in the same spot. And I'm sitting there, and it really dawned on me that we're getting the same money for these cattle. I've put a lot more, and there's a lot more invested. This is a Lambo. This is a Ford Pinto. And we're getting paid the same. And that was where it clicked with me. We're getting kind of messed over. Well, the story really started to evolve because I called my rep and I said, okay, cattle are delivered, everything's here, everything weighed up like it's supposed to. Takes them 28 minutes to kill those cattle, process them, do their whole thing. He calls me back, hey man, they did great. Sends me everything. We had 2 calves that were select. Everything was in the choice category, but almost 40% were prime. Nobody hit any deducts whatsoever. So if I'm looking and reading my little where I should be getting paid. I'm like, man, we did good. So I'm talking to the rep. I mean, I think, hey, we've got a deal worked out. This is awesome. He's like, yeah, you did great. We'll get your check in the mail. About 4 days later, I get a check in the mail. And it was the straight commodity price for like the junk cattle. And so I call him immediately.
Because you guys had prearranged the premium price and the basis,
Yep.
and you kind of had your own contract sorted
Absolutely.
already.
And so we go through, and I said, hey, man, we're about 80 grand short on this deal. Where's the rest of my money? And he goes, but, that just is what it is. And I'm sitting there. I mean, I am fuming. I said, look, I will drive up there wherever you are, and we're going to hash this out like men, because I am not going to take an $80,000 bath when my cattle performed. You sent me the document. And we go through it, and he just basically said, look, that was 20 minutes. They're in the box. There's nothing you can do about it. And if you want to fight it, fight it. Turn us into Packers and Stockyards Act, do it. We'll make sure you never sell a hoof in the U.S. again. And that's the kind of tactics that they do. And it's not only me, like there were several other young guys that in the Texas Panhandle that had the exact same situation, same week, different buyer. It's not anything new, but nothing ever happens to them. And it drives me nuts. You're playing in a system that you're locked out of.
What was the recovery like from that kind of a hit that year?
Well, thank God I had a banker that believed in me and knew that I was a man of my word, that we were able to kind of term out those losses. So not only, hey, over the next 5 years, guess what? You got an extra $20,000 payment, and you just got to make it.
What would you say to the crowd that says, oh, well, the Packers are not the problem, it's just the retailers are the problem?
The retailer is paying what the packer is providing. So when we get down to, it's no different than seeing the board price fall $80 $100, and yet the box beef price increases. So all that did, that sucked the money out of me, out of every rancher out here in America. It pulled 80 grand, 100 grand, $200,000 out of in gross revenues. This isn't Nike. I don't get a chance to sell a $100 pair of sneakers and just, I don't get to dictate that. It's just all of a sudden somebody says, hey, you got to sell them for $20.
I don't want that point to be lost on anyone. What you just said, because of a tweet, we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the pockets of the ranchers. We lost about $500 per head, per animal of beef when they left our custody and we sold them, and yet the price of beef never came down in the stores.
And won't come down. And I'll guarantee you the margins for the retailer, your local grocer, it's still the same. We saw it in COVID.
Every time there's a sneeze in the wrong direction, a breath exhaled in the wrong direction of the cattle market, and the CBOT, the rancher, the people who have the most on the line are the ones to suffer.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we get hit all the time with whatever whim that shows up. Here's the other thing. We've got LRP that can protect us. So if we're sitting here and they say, well, we've got tools. If it's lock limit every day for 10 days, you don't have a chance to LRP. The rules will not allow you to put an LRP policy on. And this is what I think people don't understand. They're like, well, you can hedge. Absolutely. All farmers and ranchers can hedge. But the problem is you've been beat up and your margins are so freaking thin that you're sitting here going, okay, well, we're $70 a head profit right now, or I'm 110. Do you pull the trigger today, or do you think, okay, well, we're short cattle, you've got this, And so farmers and ranchers are eternal optimists, which has hurt us, but our margins are so thin that, I'm sorry, but everybody wants to do good at least once. This is the thing, there's so many tools out there to use, and that's where, like in Empire Ag, we had a lot of our guys were hedged at that 370, 375. They were protected. I mean, they lived to fight another day. And even now, the market's below that, so they're okay. But I know there is, I'd say the biggest percentage, there's probably 70, 80% are not hedged. There were guys that were buying, $2,500, $2,600 feeder calves with the intent of getting them bigger, furthering them down the chain, and then selling those for a profit. and they didn't hedge them. Now, shame on them. But again, this goes back to risk being 100% on us as farmers and ranchers.
I read somewhere that our farms and ranches carry about $500 billion of debt, just individual families. That's more than some countries. And we carry that debt personally to ensure the American people can have a cheap food supply. When I found that statistic, I was just like, well, yeah, makes sense. No wonder we're losing so many. Aside from the challenges that we all face here in ag today, we're trying to put forth some solutions. In your opinion, what's at least one or two things that would be a really solid solution to help all of the beef industry?
What I've seen just in clients we've worked with all over, and it varies, but I would say the average, 2.3 million in debt, whether that's real estate, equipment, carryover debt, livestock debt, everything. And that's what they're servicing. One thing that I've tried to reach out to the administration, but I think allow us to free ourselves from that debt. Like, don't give me a payment, but you want to free up quite a bit of cash for these operations, give them some kind of an interest waiver. Give them something, but you also got to make sure that it doesn't get inflated by the lending institution. The other thing is I think allow that to work with private capital. I mean, we started EA Capital with that intent. If you believe in the mission, which our investors believe in the mission, allow us to, reward them for stepping in and investing in American agriculture when the banks won't. And I think we are on the cusp of a financial crisis. I get 4 to 5 calls a week of guys getting their notes called due from banks all over the country for no reason. I look at them. I mean, some of these guys are between 15 and 30% loan to value. So they've got a lot of equity. I've seen some situations here recently where, a farmer, he's been in business for over 25 years. He brought all of his corn checks in. They took and applied it to his notes, but then hit a $137,000 payment on equipment. He had $156,000 net left over. They took that and applied it to another loan and left it and didn't renew his operating. So now he has no way to make that payment. So on nearly $2.5 million worth of assets, he's about to lose it all on a $136,000 equipment payment that he can't make now because of what they did. And it was out of greed. It was out of protectionism that they did it. And that happens every day across this country.
It's either allowing a way for our farms and ranches to be profitable, to stay in business, or the alternative, when they do go out, who buys the land these days? What happens to the land?
It's going to be a private equity group.
And then what will be produced on it?
Houses, if they lease it back to us to farm for the next 5 years or 10 years. That's happened also.
Do you think the American people understand just how close most farms and ranches are on the brink of just walking away?
I want you to think about somebody that works over 3,000 hours a year, literally not making a dime and losing out on time with their family. They believe in the mission because they think that, I'm here, I'm going to produce these products, I'm going to do it. God's opened this door up, and they're going to take the punishment now, thinking there's going to be a better reward. And I don't know how many men and women that I've talked to that they're in their 60s now, still with a little debt. They've built a little bit of wealth along the way, but when you get down to it, they would have been better off working a job in town, making 20 grand a year, both of them a piece, and not fighting it. And that's what a lot of them are coming to that realization now. And if things don't change, if the banking environment doesn't get better, we're going to see a lot more than 10 or 20% vanish, in my opinion. And you're going to get to a point that the big farmers or ranchers, they're going to get to a point where they don't want to be any bigger. To farm 10,000 acres or 20,000 acres or 30,000, you don't realize the dollars, the time, the management, the people, the everything that it takes to get that done. And I just don't think this model of getting bigger is going to continue or be able to get us on a path to success. We need more. And if we want to revive middle America, we need more farmers. because the tire store, the parts store, every restaurant, everything in these little towns that have been drying up, you need these farms.
I always liken it to ag is the backbone of rural America, and rural America is the backbone of America. Even though rural America only makes up 17% of our population, we still supply our sons and daughters in our military up to about 44%.
Another thing I wanted to add too, Claire, is I do a lot of succession planning with families, and I'm working with a couple families now. The father's in his 70s. You know, and you start looking at what they bought the land for, what they bought their equipment for. You start looking at the cash flow cycle where some of these generations, they had an opportunity to pay for a lot of the base of that operation in a 7 or 10 year period. I was just looking at a family where the son was looking to buy the dad out. And it was a fair price, but that son was saddling up for 100 years of debt to pay for that farm. I mean, think about it. Like, he will never see the day that he is not in debt. That's where we're at right now in agriculture. There was a time where you could grow and you could buy land, you could get things going, and it was prosperous and people could make a living, you know, and you weren't going to be rich, but you could make a living. And we're getting to the point right now where a lot of folks aren't even making a living.
Talk to us a little bit about the mental health aspect of what's going on right now.
We have had clients that we've worked with that their mental health has severely diminished. You know, you get that call at 10 o'clock at night and they're wanting to end it all because of the financial pressures. And you walk them through that journey, and we actually have a professional that works with us. I'll get them in touch with her. She's a licensed therapist. She's worked in the ag community, so she understands that demographic very well. We've always been taught in ag just to suck it up, you know, be tough. There's only so much that you can take of getting beat down and losing, you know, that there comes a point where some of these guys are really walking that line of, hey, it's time, you know, I'm just going to end it all. But we try to walk them through kind of building back, restructuring things, you know, but it gets down to, this is a stressful time. And I don't think the American public really realizes that you get the bank that's against you. You got your input supplier that's giving you seed, chemical, fertilizer. You got the packer trying to screw you on this end of it. Like, there is no one in the corner of the American farmer. And if you follow any social media over the last 6 months, everybody has said, oh, you got what you voted for. Well, who cares who you voted for? This has been a problem since 1960. And I don't care, Republican, Democrat, you can pick whatever. But this farm policy that we are facing right now, this problem's been building for a long time. So somebody has to take a stand and truly make a difference in the American politics, agriculture. But it's going to take both parties. They're going to have to work together.
Some of our row crops out there, a lot of our soybean farmers, facing huge losses, facing very dire situations. I believe they are going to get a subsidy payment or something to keep them on the land and keep them producing it. I'm all for whatever it takes to keep the farmer and rancher on the ground, because our ag economy has gotten so convoluted and so complicated. Like, some of these companies, when they hear that the farmers are going to get a payment of some kind, they start tinkering with their prices and like, okay, well, more cash is coming to the farmer's pocket. We better take that out. Do you think that happens?
I know it happens. They mine it out of us, I promise. They literally do. And they go run the budgets, and I guarantee you they know that our threshold, I mean, they have teams hired to figure out how much can we increase this before the farmer really notices. Well, it's not only just one company, it's 10 companies that are doing that. So then you stack that on, and that's how a guy ends up with, you know, say it's going to cost $800 to put a crop in the ground, that somehow we end up with $810 in expenses. They're extracting every ounce of profit out of us. So yeah, if we get a subsidy payment, and if you're farming 10,000 acres, I mean, guys, think about that. It takes $800, $900 to put a crop in on 10,000 acres. It's a lot of money. Remember the model, the big get bigger. We've been forced to do that. So right now, I think there's a lot of, in agriculture, I mean, There's a lot of negative sentiment around those government payments. But if that soybean farmer in Arkansas gets a check for $125,000, and guys, there are payment limits on these programs. 125 grand spread out on 10,000 acres, is it really a big number? I mean, to the average consumer that's out here looking like, yes, $125,000
Right.
is a lot.
Of course.
But the size of operation, the fact that I had a farmer, his engine blew up in his tractor. That's $75,000. I think we need subsidies of some sort. I mean, we would all much rather have a market that we could prosper in. You give me $14 beans and $6 corn, you know, $3.20 feeder cattle, $2.40 fats, and like, let's make it work.
Do you think a case needs to be made, or they need to be looked into for maybe price gouging, or when we get a subsidy payment, maybe they need to have a lock on? I mean, I know we're kind of picking winners and losers there at some point, but
it's already a convoluted system. There does need to be a little bit of oversight in that. I'm not for, you know, a lot of regulation in free markets, but at the same time, like, there comes a point where a market or an industry has been mined to the point that there's nothing left. We need to do something. We need to figure out, because it is a national security issue. It's definitely going to be an issue that's not going away. We're going to be fighting this for a long time. I think we do need some oversight of some sort, and I don't know what that answer is.
at least we can all start talking about it. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for all your time today. We like to try to end things on a little bit of a lighter note, so we have some rapid fire questions if you're up for it.
Sure.
These are really hard ones. Cow-calf or feeder cattle?
I'm more of a cow-calf guy.
Okay, awesome. Country music or rock and roll?
Oh, depends on the day.
Good answer. T-bone or ribeye?
Oh, ribeye.
Coffee or Coors Light?
Oh, maybe both.
Okay, awesome. Jonathan, thank you so much for everything.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. Thanks for being on. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of The Real Rural. Thank you again to everyone at Empire Ag. We'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.
If you don't already follow us on social media, please do. We're on Instagram and YouTube at The Real Rural. Please follow us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Give us a thumbs up or a heart or a like. It really helps. If you want to get the merch, go to claredunn.com. Click on store. Once you get there, you can get a Support Ag t-shirt. And thank you guys for all your love and support.